Victoria Chen adjusted her glasses for the 100th time that morning, her fingers trembling slightly as she organized the mountain of paperwork on her desk. 3 years of working as a research assistant at Blackwood Industries had taught her to blend into the background, to be efficient and invisible. Her conservative gray sweater and simple black skirt were carefully chosen to avoid drawing attention in the gleaming corporate offices of Manhattan's most powerful tech empire, Marcus. Blackwood stood 30 floors above her, staring out at the city's skyline from his corner office. At 34, he commanded respect and fear in equal measure. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his charcoal suit tailored to perfection, and his green eyes held the kind of intensity that made grown men stammer. But today, those eyes reflected something unusual: uncertainty. "Sir, your 3 o'clock appointment with the board is ready," came a soft voice from his doorway. Marcus turned to see Victoria standing there, tablet in hand, her attention focused entirely on business. She had been part of his world for 3 years, managing schedules and research with quiet efficiency. Her intelligence was undeniable, but she seemed determined to hide behind oversized glasses and conservative clothing. "Cancel it," Marcus said, abruptly, surprising them both. "I need to discuss something more pressing." Victoria's eyebrows rose slightly. "Of course, sir. What can I help you with?" Marcus walked to his desk, his movements predatory and graceful. The Crystal Ball Charity Gala was tomorrow night, the most exclusive event in Manhattan's social calendar. Every year he attended alone, claiming he was too focused on business for relationships. But whispers had started circulating among his competitors and board members, whispers that questioned his ability to form connections, to be trusted with personal relationships. "What gala tomorrow night?" he began, studying Victoria's reaction. "I need a companion." Victoria blinked, clearly confused. "Should I contact your usual escort service, sir?" "No." Marcus's voice was firm. "You'll be accompanying me." The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria's tablet nearly slipped from her suddenly nerveless fingers. Her mind raced as she tried to process what was happening. Marcus Blackwood, the man who barely acknowledged her existence beyond work requirements, was asking her to attend the most exclusive social event in the city. "I don't think I would be appropriate for such an event, sir," she said carefully, her professional composure cracking slightly. Marcus stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne. "You're intelligent, articulate, and certainly capable of holding a conversation. It's more than I can say for most of the people who attend these functions." Victoria felt heat rise in her cheeks. His casual assessment reduced her to a list of basic qualifications, reminding her exactly why she had been quietly applying for positions at other companies. Working for Marcus Blackwood was like being trapped in a golden cage with a magnificent but unpredictable predator. Yet there was something in his expression she couldn't identify. Desperation, perhaps? Surely not. Marcus Blackwood didn't do desperation. "Think of it as overtime," Marcus continued when she didn't respond immediately. "I'll compensate you appropriately for your time, naturally." And there it was. The final reminder that this wasn't a man asking a woman. This was her boss giving her an assignment, another task to add to her endless list of responsibilities in service to his empire. "Of course, Mr. Blackwood," she said finally, her voice carefully neutral, despite the storm of emotions building beneath the surface. "I'll make sure to clear my schedule." "Excellent." Marcus turned back to his window, already dismissing her from his thoughts. "The car will pick you up at 7. As Victoria left his office, her mind was already racing. Marcus Blackwood thought. He was playing a game, using her as a convenient solution to whatever social pressure he was facing. He expected her to show up as his dowdy assistant, to provide a few hours of mild respectability before returning to her designated role as invisible support staff. But as Victoria began planning her strategy for tomorrow night, she was imagining a very different kind of evening. For 3 years she had watched Marcus navigate the treacherous waters of Manhattan's elite. She had seen him charm investors and demolish competitors with equal skill. She had observed his world from the shadows, learning its rules and understanding its players better than most people who lived in it. Tomorrow night, Marquez Blackwood would discover that underestimating Victoria Chen was the biggest mistake of his privileged, arrogant life. 20-4 hours later. Victoria stood before her bedroom mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her. Her best friend Elena Rodriguez had arrived at dawn with an arsenal of beauty products, designer gowns, the kind of expertise that came from years of working as a personal stylist for Manhattan's elite. "Victoria, darling," Elena said, circling, her friend with the calculating gaze of an artist approaching a masterpiece. "Tonight, we're not changing who you are. We're revealing the goddess who's been hiding beneath those conservative suits." The transformation had taken 6 hours. Victoria's naturally thick black hair was released from its perpetual bun, styled into elegant waves that cascaded over her shoulders like dark silk. Her olive skin glowed with subtle makeup that enhanced rather than masked her natural beauty. Behind contact lenses, her dark eyes appeared luminous and mysterious. The dress was Elena's masterstroke. Deep emerald silk that hugged Victoria's curves like liquid fire, with a neckline that was sophisticated rather than revealing. The gown whispered of hidden sensuality with every movement, transforming her from invisible assistant to captivating woman. "Remember," Elena said, as she applied the finishing touches, "confidence is your best accessory. You're not competing with those hollow socialites. You're going to outclass them by being authentically extraordinary." At exactly 7 o'clock, Victoria stood before Marcus's penthouse door, her heart racing. The woman who had spent 3 years invisible in conservative blazers had vanished, replaced by someone who commanded attention simply by existing. When Marcus opened the door, his prepared greeting died on his lips. The woman standing before him bore no resemblance to his efficient assistant. Gone were the oversized glasses, replaced by contacts that revealed eyes like dark chocolate, mysterious and captivating. Her hair fell in lustrous waves, framing a face that was both elegant and sensual. But it was the dress that stopped his heart entirely. The emerald silk clung to curves he had never noticed, never allowed himself to notice, when she turned slightly to adjust her clutch. Marcus glimpsed the gown's only dramatic detail, a deep V that plunged along her spine, revealing skin like polished marble. "Good evening, Mr. Blackwood," Victoria said, her voice carrying a confidence that made his pulse quicken. Marcus realized he had been staring and forced himself to speak. "Victoria," he managed, his voice rougher than intended, "you look incredible." She smiled, and even that was transformed. Her usual careful, professional expression had been replaced by something radiant and genuine. "Thank you. I hope this is appropriate for the occasion." "Appropriate?" Marcus nearly laughed at the understatement. She looked like a goddess who had decided to walk among mortals. Every man at the gala would want her, and every woman would either envy or desperately want to be her. During the limousine ride to the hotel, Marcus found himself stealing glances at Victoria. The city lights played across her face as she gazed out the window, and he was struck by how little he actually knew about the woman who had managed his life for 3 years. "Tell me something about yourself that isn't in your personnel file," he said suddenly. Victoria turned to him, surprise flickering across her features. "Why?" "Because in about 20 minutes, people are going to ask me about the beautiful woman on my arm. I'd rather not sound like I hired you from an escort service." She laughed, a rich sound that sent heat spiraling through his chest. "Well, I speak 4 languages. I have a degree in molecular biology that I've never used. And I've been secretly redesigning your company's research protocols in my spare time." Marcus stared at her. "What? Your current methodology is efficient, but outdated. I've developed several improvements that could increase productivity by 30% while reducing costs." She shrugged elegantly. "I was planning to submit them through proper channels eventually." The limousine pulled up to the hotel, but Marcus made no move to get out. This brilliant, captivating woman had been sitting outside his office for 3 years, and he had treated her like sophisticated office equipment. "Victoria," he said softly, reaching for her hand, "I owe you an apology." Her breath caught as his fingers intertwined with hers. "For what? For being blind?" His thumb traced across her knuckles. "For 3 years, I've been an arrogant fool who couldn't see the extraordinary woman right in front of him." The air between them crackled with sudden electricity. Victoria felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble under the intensity of his gaze. "You should go," she whispered, but made no move to pull away from his touch. "Yes," Marcus agreed, but instead of releasing her hand, he lifted it to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her palm. "We should." The Crystal Ball Charity Gala was everything Victoria had imagined and more. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel glittered with crystal chandeliers, elegant flower arrangements, and the cream of Manhattan society. Women in designer gowns worth more than most people's cars, mingled with men whose net worth could fund small countries. Marcus guided Victoria through the crowd with his hand at the small of her back, and she was acutely aware of the warmth of his palm against her bare skin. Everywhere they went, conversations paused and heads turned. She could feel the weight of curious stares and whispered speculation. "Marcus, darling," came a cultured voice from behind them. They turned to see Cassandra Vale, a socialite known for her sharp tongue and sharper ambition. Her ice blue gown was stunning, but her smile was predatory. "I don't believe I've had the pleasure of meeting your companion, Cassandra," Marcus replied smoothly, his arm sliding possessively around Victoria's waist. "May I present Victoria? Chen, my research director." Victoria nearly choked on her champagne. Research director. She was about to correct him when she felt his fingers tighten slightly against her hip, a silent message to play along.
"Ow."
"Fascinating," Cassandra purred, her eyes raking over Victoria with barely concealed disdain. "I wouldn't have expected you to mix business with pleasure, Marcus. Sometimes the most valuable treasures are hidden in unexpected places," Marcus replied, his gaze never leaving Victoria's face. As the evening progressed, Victoria found herself genuinely enjoying the complex social dynamics. Her years of observing Marcus's business dealings had taught her to read people, and she navigated conversations with grace and intelligence that left several prominent businessmen thoroughly impressed. But it was when the orchestra began playing that everything changed. "Dance with me," Marcus said, extending his hand. Victoria hesitated. Dancing would mean being in his arms, pressed against his body, pretending an intimacy that was becoming increasingly difficult to fake. "People are watching," Marcus added softly. "We need to sell this." She took his hand, allowing him to lead her onto the dance floor. The moment his arm encircled her waist and pulled her close, Victoria knew she was in trouble. It's close. She could see the gold flecks in his green eyes, could feel the solid warmth of his chest against hers. "You're full of surprises tonight," Marcus murmured as they moved together in perfect synchronization. "Molecular biology? For languages? Secret research protocols?" "You never asked," Victoria replied, her voice breathier than she intended. "You never saw me as anything more than an efficient assistant." "I see you now," he said, his voice rough with something that sounded dangerously like desire. "God help me, I see you now." The music swirled around them, but Victoria was lost in the intensity of Marcus's gaze. His hand slid lower on her back, his thumb tracing the edge of the dress's dramatic cut. She shivered at the contact, her body responding to his touch in ways that terrified and thrilled her. "Marcus," she whispered, not sure if she was protesting or pleading. "I know," he replied, reading the conflict in her eyes. "This is madness." The song ended, but neither of them moved apart. They stood in the center of the dance floor, oblivious to the other couples around them, lost in a moment that felt suspended in time. "I need some air," Victoria said suddenly, the weight of his gaze and the heat of his body overwhelming her. Senses Marcus nodded, understanding flickering in his eyes. The terrace. They made their way through the crowd, Marcus's hand never leaving the small of her back. The terrace overlooked Central Park, the city lights twinkling like earth-bound stars. The cool night air was a relief against Victoria's heated skin. "This wasn't supposed to happen," Marcus said, standing close enough that she could feel his body heat. "What wasn't supposed to happen?" Victoria asked, though she knew exactly what he meant. Instead of answering, Marcus reached up and cupped her face in his hands. "You were supposed to be convenient, safe, forgettable. And now you're the most dangerous woman I've ever met." His thumb traced along her cheekbone. "Because you make me want things I've never allowed myself to want." "Marcus," he silenced. her with a kiss that was gentle and devastating at the same time. Victoria melted into him, her hands fisting in the lapels of his tuxedo as 3 years of suppressed attraction exploded between them. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. "Come home with me," Marcus whispered against her. Lips. Victoria looked into his eyes and saw vulnerability there, a crack in his perfectly controlled facade. This powerful man who commanded boardrooms and built empires was asking, not demanding. The difference changed everything. "Yes," she whispered. "Back," sealing both their fates with a single word. Victoria woke in Marcus's bed as dawn painted the Manhattan skyline in shades of gold and rose.
Oh.
The silk sheets felt luxurious against her skin.
Oh.
But it was the warm weight of Marcus's arm around her waist that made her breath catch. Last night had been a revelation, passionate and tender in ways that left her heart racing and her defenses in ruins. Marcus stirred beside her, his green eyes opening to meet hers. For a moment neither spoke, both processing the magnitude of what had changed. Between them, the powerful CEO and his invisible assistant had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. "Good morning, Marcus," said softly, his voice still rough with sleep. His hand traced gentle patterns along her bare shoulder, sending shivers through her body. "Good morning," Victoria replied, suddenly shy despite their intimacy. In the morning, light, the weight of their professional relationship pressed down on her. "Marcus, about last night, don't," he interrupted, pulling her closer. "Don't analyze it or apologize for it. Last night was the first real thing I've felt in years." Victoria studied his face, seeing vulnerability there that she'd never witnessed before. "What happens now? On Monday? Do we pretend this never happened?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his fingers threading through her dark hair. "Tell me something," he said finally. "Why did you stay at Blackwood Industries? You're brilliant enough to work anywhere, yet you've been content to organize my schedule and manage my research for 3 years. Victoria hesitated, then decided. "On honesty? Because I was studying you, learning how you think, how you operate. I knew that someday I'd start my own biotech company, and I wanted to understand what made you successful." Marcus raised an eyebrow, impressed, despite himself. "And what did you learn?" "That you're brilliant but lonely. That you push people away because you're terrified of being vulnerable. That beneath all that arrogance and control, you're just a man who's afraid of being abandoned again." The accuracy of her assessment hit him like a physical blow. "You don't know what you're talking about, don't I?" Victoria sat up, the sheet pooling around her waist. "Your parents died when you were 16. You built this empire from nothing because you were determined never to be helpless again. But success is cold comfort when you have no one to share it with." Marcus stared at her, shaken by how clearly she saw through him. "How do you know about my parents? I've been your assistant for 3 years, Marcus. I know everything about you." Her voice softened. "Including the fact that you visit their graves every year on the anniversary of the accident, and you always go alone." The walls Marcus had spent years constructing began to crumble under the gentle persistence of her understanding. He had never allowed anyone to see this deep, never trusted anyone with his vulnerabilities. "Victoria," he said, his voice breaking slightly, "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be in a relationship without trying to control every aspect of it." She leaned down and kissed him softly, pouring all her tenderness into the contact. "Then we'll figure it out together." The rest of the weekend passed in a blur of intimate conversations and passionate encounters. Marcus showed Victoria parts of his penthouse she'd never seen, shared stories from his childhood that he'd never told anyone. In return, she revealed her own dreams and fears, her plans for the future, her secret ambition to revolutionize biotech research. They cooked breakfast together, Marcus surprising Victoria with his skill in the kitchen. They walked through Central Park hand in hand, talking about everything and nothing. They made love with an intensity that left them both shaken, as if they were trying to memorize every touch. Every kiss, Sunday evening, found them curled together. On Marcus's couch, city lights twinkling beyond the floor, 2 ceiling windows. Victoria was reading research journals while Marcus worked on his laptop, their legs intertwined in comfortable intimacy. "I want to offer you a position," Marcus said suddenly. Victoria looked up suspicious. What kind of position? Head of research and development. Your own department, your own budget, complete autonomy over your projects. His eyes were serious. This isn't about us, Victoria. This is about your brilliance finally getting the recognition it deserves. Marcus, I've been reviewing your protocol improvements. They're revolutionary. You could change everything we do, everything the industry does. He set aside his laptop and turned to face her fully. I want to give you that opportunity, regardless of what happens between us personally. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. For years, she had dreamed of exactly this opportunity, but she had always imagined achieving it on her own terms. I need to think about it, she said finally. Of course. Marcus pulled her into his arms. But Victoria, don't let fear hold you back. Don't let the fact that I'm offering this make you doubt your worth. You've earned this opportunity 100 times over. As they held each other in the growing darkness, both wondered if love could truly conquer the complex dynamics of power, ambition, and desire that swirled between them. Monday morning arrived with the subtle violence of an earthquake. Victoria sat at her desk, trying to focus on emails while acutely aware of Marcus's presence in the office above her. Everything had changed, yet everything remained the same. The contradiction was driving her mad. Victoria Chen to the executive conference room came the announcement over the intercom. Victoria's blood ran cold. Executive conference room was where careers were made and destroyed. She gathered her composure and made her way upstairs, her heels clicking against the marble floors like a countdown to judgment. Inside the conference room, she found not just Marcus, but the entire board of directors. Their faces were a mixture of curiosity, skepticism, and barely concealed hostility. At the head of the table sat Richard Blackwood, Marcus's uncle and the chairman of the board. "Miss Chen," Richard said, his voice carrying decades of corporate authority, "please sit." Victoria remained standing. If this is about my relationship with Marcus, I'm prepared to submit my resignation immediately. A murmur of surprise rippled through the room. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Your relationship? Richard's eyebrows rose. My dear girl, we're here to discuss your revolutionary research protocols. Marcus has recommended you for the position of head of research and development. Victoria felt the ground shift beneath her feet. I don't understand. Your improvements to our current methodologies are remarkable, said Dr. Patricia Wells, the head of the Scientific Advisory Board. If implemented correctly, they could revolutionize not just our company, but the entire biotech industry. However, Richard continued, his gaze sharpening, there are concerns about the complications of promoting someone with whom our CEO is romantically involved. The room fell silent. Victoria felt all eyes on her, waiting for her response. This was the moment she had spent 3 years preparing for, but not like this. With her personal life laid bare before the corporate tribunal. With respect, Mr. Blackwood, Victoria said, her voice clear and strong, my research stands on its own merit. My relationship with Marcus is personal and has no bearing on my professional capabilities, doesn't it? Richard leaned back in his chair. How can we be sure that your promotion isn't simply the result of pillow talk? The insult hit its mark, and Victoria felt anger flare hot in her chest. Instead of retreating, she stepped forward. Because, she said, pulling out her tablet, I've been developing these protocols for 2 years. Long before anything personal developed between Marcus and myself, she began displaying her research on the large screen. I can walk you through every calculation, every theory, every projected outcome. My work speaks for itself. For the next hour, Victoria presented her research with the passion and brilliance that had been hidden for so long. She answered every question, countered every skepticism, and demonstrated a depth of knowledge that left the board members speechless. When she finished, the room was quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioning. Remarkable, Dr. Wells said finally. Absolutely remarkable. Richard looked around the table, reading the expressions of his fellow board members. Very well, Miss Chen. The position is yours, effective immediately, your first order of business. We'll be implementing these protocols across all our research divisions. Thank you, Victoria said, her voice steady, despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. You won't regret this decision." As the board members filed out, Richard paused beside Marcus. "She's extraordinary," he said quietly. "Don't screw this up, nephew." When they were alone, Marcus crossed to Victoria, pride and desire warring in his expression. "You were magnificent," he said, pulling her into his arms. "I can't believe this is real," Victoria whispered against his chest. 3 years I've dreamed of this moment." "Believe it," Marcus said, tilting her chin up to meet his gaze. "You've earned every bit of this success." "And Victoria?" "Yes, love you." The words hung between them, simple and devastating. "I love your brilliance, your strength, your ability to see through my walls and love me anyway." Victoria felt tears spill down her cheeks. "I love you too. Even when you were impossible and arrogant and treating me like office furniture." Marcus laughed, the sound rich and free. "I promise to do better. We'll do better together." Kissed her then, soft and sweet, sealing their promise with all the passion and tenderness they had discovered in each other. 6 months later, Victoria's research protocols had transformed Blackwood Industries into the most innovative biotech company in the world. She and Marcus worked together as partners in every sense, their love story becoming the stuff of corporate legend. But more importantly, they had found in each other what they had both been searching for without knowing it: someone who saw past the surface to the extraordinary person beneath. Someone worth the risk of vulnerability, worth the courage to love completely in the end. The assistant had become so much more than anyone had imagined. And the CEO had learned that the greatest victories weren't won in boardrooms, but in the quiet moments of genuine connection between two hearts brave enough to love.